When gold ruled the world, money meant something real. It was heavy, it was scarce, it was proof. For thousands of years, gold was the one promise every empire kept, until they didn't. Because every civilization that ties its power to gold eventually decides it's too heavy to carry. And when they do, the illusion begins. This is the story of how gold lost its power, and how that moment changed the meaning of money forever. For most of history, money wasn't paper. It was metal. The Egyptians buried it with their pharaohs. The Romans minted it with their emperors' faces. And merchants across Asia and Europe trusted it because it couldn't be faked easily. Gold was universal truth. It didn't matter what language you spoke, an ounce was an ounce. That's why for centuries, every major empire anchored its wealth to gold or silver. It limited greed, it forced discipline, and it made inflation almost impossible. Until rulers realized discipline was the problem. Because when gold limits your spending and your ambition costs more than your vault holds, you're forced to choose power or honesty. History shows which one they always pick. The first cracks appeared in England. In 1717, Sir Isaac Newton, then master of the mint, set the price of gold too low compared to silver. It locked Britain onto what became the gold standard. For a while it worked. Britain's empire flourished, its currency was the envy of the world, and its power spread on golden rails. But by World War I, the empire's appetite had outgrown its treasure. The government printed promises instead of coins, and for the first time, the pound was backed by words, not metal. The gold standard was suspended, and when peace returned, so did the illusion that nothing had changed. They called it temporary. It never really was. Across the Atlantic, America learned the same lesson in real time. The U.S. entered World War I rich in gold and left it holding the world's debts. When the Great Depression hit, citizens rushed to withdraw their gold, their only protection against panic. In 1933, the U.S. government made that illegal. Citizens were forced to hand in their gold in exchange for paper dollars at a fixed rate. The punishment for refusing? 10 years in prison. It was the clearest confession any empire ever made. They couldn't control their debts, so they would control their people instead. From that moment on, the link between wealth and gold wasn't just broken, it was criminalized. But the illusion needed a stage, and it found one in 1944, Bretton Woods. As World War II ended, 44 nations agreed to peg their currencies to the US dollar and the dollar itself to gold. For a generation, it seemed perfect. America's vaults held most of the world's bullion. Its promises looked solid. Its money was as good as gold, literally. But trust, like gold, is finite. By the late 1960s, U.S. spending exploded. The Vietnam War, social programs, rising imports, and the quiet flood of dollars leaving the country. Foreign governments began asking for the gold behind those dollars. And in 1971, President Nixon faced the math. The gold was running out, so he did what every emperor eventually does. He changed the rules. He ended the convertibility of dollars to gold, closing the gold window forever. The age of metal ended in a single televised speech. The world entered the era of paper promises. For the first time in history, every major currency was backed by nothing but faith. The gold anchor was gone, and governments discovered a new freedom, to print wealth without restraint. The 1970s were chaos, oil shocks, double-digit inflation, collapsing trust. People who had saved in dollars watched their wealth melt. Investors ran back to gold, but now gold was no longer money. It was resistance. It became the mirror that exposed every government lie about stability. And that's when gold's true power was revealed. Not as a tool of the state, but as a warning against it. Today, we live entirely inside the system gold was meant to prevent. Money no longer measures value. It measures belief. The more we print, the less it means. And every crisis brings the same response. Print more, promise more, borrow more. The world calls it progress. History calls it repetition. Because every civilization that abandons its anchor drifts the same way, toward inflation, inequality, and the quiet theft of savings through the printing press. The Romans debased their coins. The British suspended gold. The Americans replaced it with paper. And now the entire planet lives on trust alone. But trust is the most fragile currency of all. So what happens when belief runs out? When people realize the promises can't be kept? History gives the same answer every time. They turn back to something real. Land, skills, energy, gold. Gold didn't lose its power. We just stopped deserving it. Because the real collapse wasn't in metal, it was in meaning. When nations chose debt over discipline, illusion over restraint, they didn't just change money, they changed truth. And in a world where money is only faith, collapse doesn't start in the vault. It starts in the mind. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers, and Money Lore will show you where to look.